are back with the review of another model of a folding tower crane. The real crane is made by Edilgru, and it's the snappily named MH1000-30/32. The model is made by CGM Models of Italy. The colourful box has got a nice picture of the real crane on it, and inside the box we find a couple of foam trays. So that's different from the usual expanded polystyrene. We can lift the top tray off, but as we can see the model is delicate, so we have to be a little careful. And inside is a card from the distributor of CGM models, and that's Model Morris. To unpack the model completely there's some tape to undo, but you need to be careful with the scissors to make sure you don't cut something that you shouldn't. There are no instructions included with the model, but we'll do the best we can, and initially we'll put the crane in transport mode. There are a couple of transport axles to fit front and rear, and as you can see the task is to line up the fixing holes. The axles are then secured to the frame by the means of steel pins. For transport the outrigger beams need to be folded in, but that does make it very difficult to fit on the rear axle. So the easiest way to do that is to unscrew one of the outrigger beams. Once the axle's fixed, the outrigger beam can be put back in place, but you need to do it with the pad on the inside of the wheels. And you do that because that reduces the crane to the correct transport width. The outrigger beam then gets screwed in to secure it, and we have the road axles fixed, so now the crane is mobile. Next we need to do some work on the jib, and the outer part is made in sections which are screwed together. So you can create different length jibs, and that includes replacing the jib end to stay within the transport length. But instead we'll keep the jib end to add on later. One thing we can do though is to add on the trolley, and we'll just place that on the open end of the jib. The next job is to run some hoist rope from the winch drum, and we can use the little screwdriver provided to turn the drum. That lets us catch hold of the end of the rope, and we'll see how it runs to the trolley later. Here at the trolley we've used the hoist rope to tie the hook on temporarily for transport. The wheels are nicely detailed, but the starting point for the whole model is that it is not die-cast. It is high quality plastic, and that does allow some decent detailing. The motor for the main winch is modelled, and also the slewing motor to turn the crane. On one side of the model there is an electrical cabinet. Going up the tower there's a nice sharply printed capacity board, and all of the support cables on the model are nicely modelled with wire. The crimped connections also look good. Further up the tower is an Edilgru sign, and when we get to the top there's some nice shaping and tiny metal pulleys. The trolley motor is modelled on the jib and there's another Edilgru sign, and again the support cable is metal wire. The trolley has got tiny pulleys, as has the hook. The overall profile of the lattice jib is pretty good. We begin in transport mode and the model rolls along nicely and it can be steered. It can be connected to a truck which can also carry the remaining jib sections. But let's assume we've now arrived on site, and we begin by opening up the outriggers. The tiny securing beams are locked into position with steel pins, and it's possible to adjust the height of the outrigger pads by just unscrewing them. To load on the counterweight we have to lower the counterweight trays, and these are stored in the upright position to minimise the transport width. Once the trays are lowered, the solid counterweight blocks are just clipped on, and there's some decent detail because there are lifting eyes modelled in the top, so you can pose them with a loader crane. As an alternative, the loader crane can be posed adding on the remaining jib sections, or you can just get on and use the giant hand cranes. The jib sections are fairly tough plastic, but you still need to be careful how you connect them up. And once they're lined up you can secure them by using tiny black screws. Here the jib has been assembled and we'll rotate it around to make the final connection. Before putting in the screws it's best to make sure that the holes line up, and here we're using the shaft of a very thin screwdriver. At this point, the trolley position can be adjusted, and we can take the hoist rope onto the end of the jib and tie it off. We are now in a position where we can erect the crane, and we need to be careful that the support wires are not getting snagged as we raise up the tower. Because the geometry of the system is very good, the position of the jib takes care of itself. With the tower erected, we need again to secure it into position, and that's another job for more tiny screws. As for the functionality of the crane, the model can be rotated, and the trolley can be located along the jib, but it's best to have a load on the hook when you do it. The winch drum is operated by the tiny screwdriver, but it doesn't have much of a brake. Here we see it loaded with a concrete bucket, which is a CGM model's accessory. With the crane erected, we can see the root of the hoist rope, and it runs from the winch drum up the middle of the tower. It then reaches a pulley at the top and goes over and out through to the jib. Another CGM model's accessory which could be useful on this model is the large metal spreader plates, and the pads in the model fit into them very nicely. So with the model assembled, let's see if it will fit in a display case, and we'll do our trusty dim check. To the top, the model is about 19 inches or 49 centimetres, and end to end it's about 28 inches or 72 centimetres. This is another well-executed folding tower crane from CGM models. It is not die-cast, but it has been modelled very well in high-quality plastic, and it has some nice detail with reasonable functionality. The best part of the model is that it looks realistic, and overall it is rated as good.